Well, there's another power, mystical power in Game of Thrones, is the ability of some characters to become an animal by taking over their mind. So let's check it out.
Skinwalking, shape-shifting, there are various words for it in various legends in various cultures. The Navajo have a version of it here in New Mexico, and of course, it existed in Europe in various forms. But again, how to do this realistically? I think the actual bodily change where, the bones get longer and the mass gets heavier and the whole body rearranges, well, it's cool for a horror story, and I've used it that, but it didn't seem to fit in Game of Thrones. So I thought, well, this skin changer would be someone who actually moved his consciousness into another thing. Not that his body actually changed, but he got his mind into an eagle or a wolf, or had some bond with them. And
can I tell you how brilliant that is? Because it took us a while to learn and to embrace, but that objects that have physical existence, that's one thing. But the concept of information doesn't have the same constraints of a physical object. Plus, it's valued differently. Right? So I can give you 2 oranges and you have 2 oranges. But if I give you 2 newspapers, you don't have twice as much information.
No.
It's the same information, but duplicated. So, and we've also found that...
Unless one of them is the Times and one of them is the Herald, something then you have completely different versions.
So for you to transfer a consciousness, in a way, you're transferring information,
right,
that is completely plausible relative to, you're right, bones growing, like the Hulk becoming the Hulk. Well, where did that extra mass come from, right? You have issues.
I mean, in some ways, the ability to transfer your memories, transfer your consciousness into something else is the possibility of immortality. If your memories survive, then you survive your personality, whether it's in a robot body or a clone body that we grow. I mean, science fiction has done many different ways. If you assume, of course, that that's really you. That's always been my issue with the Star Trek transporter. Okay, they disintegrate your body.
Correct.
And at the end, they put together a new body from random atoms that they get, and it has your memory, and it thinks it's you, but is it really you?
Steve, if you transfer your consciousness, is it still you?
If you transfer your consciousness, is it still you? No, actually, because the you has changed from the time that you did the transfer to the time it's received, right?
But if it's your consciousness, who else's consciousness is it?
So it's a different consciousness that's a different you. So consciousness, technically, folks say, has to have 3 things. It has to be qualitative, so it's not measurable. It's the concept of being like something. It's subjective, so the subject experiences it. And it's unified. Like, I'm not thinking about the feeling of my butt in this chair, except that I just said it. So now I'm thinking about the feeling of my butt in this chair. All those things have to come together, combined with my memories and my thought of what's going forward. You take my consciousness out and put it into you, now I'm thinking of what your butt is like in that chair. I don't mean that in any sort of untoward way. I just mean that that's what I'm thinking about. So suddenly that's a new consciousness. That's what's so interesting about the concept that he created in the story.
So it's not just a consciousness that had extra stuff that happened to it, extra life experience. You're saying it's a whole new consciousness.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Racha, is there in medieval history, is there any accommodation for the transference of mind in religion, for example?
Sort of, especially in religion, actually. There are mystical traditions according to which a soul can be so connected to the divine that it can get the qualities of the divine, including looking into the future, looking into the past, looking into the present time, but seeing other spaces that the actual physical body is in. Now, telepathy, telekinesis were not categories that medieval people operated on, but they rather talked of visions and prophecy.
Yes, of course. It's full of references, such references.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's the question then, Steve. What's more likely to happen first? Reanimated dead bodies as zombies or transference of consciousness?
Honestly, I think transference of consciousness. Because as we get better at mapping the way the brain works, we can then translate that into the ones and zeros that we make things like our smartphones possible. And then, if anyone's watched Black Mirror, in any of these shows, if you just watch Game of Thrones, we know that we can start to then create a cookie of ourselves in ways that are both horrifying but also kind of invigorating when you think about it, because then you can start to think about separating
Horrifying and
the
invigorating
consciousness.
in the same sentence.
I'm pretty sure that's the motto of his lab where they're doing these experiments.
I didn't say we. I just.
No, that time he didn't say we. Right.
Yeah, so I actually think we'll be there. I think in some ways we're there-ish.
Okay, when
now.
you get there, can you come back on the show?
I would be honored. Thank you.